Seniors for Social Action Ontario is honoured to have Helen Cooper join us today. Helen has a Bachelor of Science from Queen's and a Master of Science from the London School of Economics. She was a municipal councillor and became Kingston's first woman mayor. She has served as chair of the Ontario Municipal Board and is president of the Ontario Association of Municipalities. She has been a member of the Premier's Council on Health Strategy and until her retirement was a manager with the Ministry of Community and Social Services, responsible for program delivery to people with developmental disabilities. Since retiring, she's been named a Distinguished Fellow of Queen's School of Policy Studies and has taken on the role of President of OASIS Senior Supportive Living in Kingston. Helen, welcome. Please
Thank
tell
you.
us Please tell us about OASIS and how you came to be involved.
As the bio you just recited there explained, I spent at least 10 years of my last years of my working life in Toronto. I was commuting from Kingston for the week, not the day. And having been, of course, very connected to various communities in Kingston, I became very unconnected. And then when I retired, I wanted to take part in community life again. I said the one thing I wouldn't do is serve on a board. I'd done that many times, other things to do. Well, I got a call from an old and dear friend who had also been a city councillor, who invited me to join the board of OASIS. And because it was her asking me, I couldn't refuse. Ergo, I ended right back in the world of volunteer board, not-for-profit organization. I knew nothing about OASIS. I've since been on a very steep learning curve and have committed now quite a few years to OASIS because I do believe it's serving a very useful purpose in our city. The other thing I would say that has made OASIS so very interesting for me is it is the subject of a research project at Queen's University with two remarkable faculty members, Catherine Donnelly and Vince DePaul, in the School of Rehabilitation Therapy. And the work, they've expanded OASIS to a number of other sites. They're up to, I think it's 12 sites now, literally all over the country. They've got 2 in Vancouver, as well as several across Ontario. And they're doing an evaluation. So I can feel in my gut that it's a really good idea and that it's serving a very useful purpose, but they're actually proving it. And I can assure you, for a group of volunteers, it's a 7-member volunteer board. We don't have any administrative support. We just run the original OASIS site. This is extremely heartwarming to know that we're actually performing a very useful function and that can be extended to a much larger population.
So if I were a client coming to OASIS, what might I expect?
Well, it's not a, what OASIS is saying is we know the term now, naturally occurring retirement communities. We know the demographics, our populations are aging, that people as they age gravitate to certain areas of the community. They downsize, they move to apartments or condos, not always, but often. And they choose locations that are convenient, and those become our NORCs. And what OASIS is saying, let's take advantage of having these populations. Let's see what we can do for people when they're living in close proximity and when they're in more advanced years. And that's, so it's a matter of convenience in terms of recognizing where people are actually living.
So supports are coming to the people as opposed to people having to go to supports.
That's right. That's right. Now, when we use the word supports, it is not a home care program. I think we have to emphasize that very, very quickly. OASIS is concentrating on good nutrition, encouraging exercise, but the critical factor about OASIS is addressing loneliness and isolation in the seniors population. And I always refer people to one of the more seminal moments for me in terms of listening to a TED Talk. Robert Waldinger, who is the current director of the Harvard Study on Adult Development. I highly recommend, it's easy to find his TED Talk. I've recently been informed it's one of the top 10 TED Talks of anybody anywhere being watched. And it's stressing that what is more critically important than anything else to happiness and longevity is maintaining relationships. And we have an epidemic of loneliness, I have learned. And it's a fundamental primary preventative health measure to be addressing this in the population. And that's what OASIS is attempting to do.
Yes, social support is so important, and that's been found over and over again in one study after another. And so OASIS provides a variety of activities and opportunities for people to get together then.
That's right. The founder of OASIS is Christine McMillan, who now lives in Toronto. She moved there to be closer to her family. She was the instigator, or I don't know if that's the right word, but the founder of the Council on Aging in Kingston many years ago now. They decided to undertake a project on examining elder abuse. Was it a recurring problem or not? They picked a building that was well known in the city for generally a private sector a rental that was well known to house a lot of older people, always has, and they surveyed it. And what they discovered was that elder abuse wasn't the issue. The issue was loneliness. People were expressing concern about the fact that they weren't associating with anybody in the community. And that, of course, as Christine very ably describes, leads to a downward spiral. Like you don't care anymore. You don't bother anymore. You don't bother to get dressed in the morning. You don't bother to eat properly. You don't bother to exercise. And so you end up, as I said, on this downward spiral of becoming more and more unhealthy all the time, both physically and mentally. And so Christine, not living in the apartment at the time in the building, but then moving there at a later date, started OASIS. And the fundamental critical factor of OASIS, the one thing that costs money is a program coordinator, whom we all describe as the glue that keeps it all together. And we have a very cooperative landlord, Homestead Land Holdings in Kingston, which is a huge success story. Homestead has buildings literally all across Canada. And the founder of Homestead was very supportive. And so they made space in the building for a lounge dedicated for the use of OASIS members, very pleasant room. And they also have a larger common room that have been used for bigger events. But what OASIS has been able to offer is a place for people to congregate. And through a coordinator has been able to offer a variety of activities. The very, very critical factor for OASIS is that it's not somebody else deciding what's good for the people who choose to join OASIS, who are tenants in the building. They decide what they want to do. And they also decide to what extent they wish to participate. So we respect people's autonomy. We respect a sense of control for them, which is so lacking in, the whole long-term care sector, where people completely lose their autonomy, and which leads to, I think, problems in mental health in particular.
Absolutely. And we hear over and over again how autonomy is so important for people. And this is a perfect segue because, as you know, many of us at SSAO are deeply concerned about the lack of provincial government investment in both in-home and community-based for people. And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, having got involved, it's not a sector that I was at all familiar with. Having learned as much as I have, very much appreciate many of the offerings from SSAO itself, but reading articles, reading Andre Picard's recent book, all sorts of things like that are coming out now in terms of realizing how important supportive care is, how important support is for people to be able to live in their own homes. I'm just not sounding very original here. I think, what is it, some 95, at least 95% of Canadian older citizens are saying this is what they want to do. But OASIS, I did just basic arithmetic. As I said, OASIS isn't a home care program, and several of the people who are members of our OASIS site also do receive home care. But I did the arithmetic around what it costs, because we're the only OASIS site that's been funded by the provincial government, and that has been the case for 11 or 12 years now. The arithmetic is that it costs about $10 per weekday per member to run the program. Just think, even if that means that somebody defers moving to a more elaborative setting requiring further care, even that the savings to the provincial government for 1 year are absolutely extraordinary. And I've got to know the members really well. I see them often in one setting or another, and they're interesting, happy, pleasant people who are very engaged in a variety of activities, and who are interested in what's going on in a wider world. One of the things they asked me to do, and this is the municipal election, not the most recent one because it was still in the era of COVID, but the one before pre-COVID, they asked me to help them organize an all candidates meeting in their building. Got a really big turnout. So it showed, I mean, they're still very much engaged in their community in a way that they probably wouldn't be if they were in some kind of institutional setting.
Absolutely right. Now, you have a very distinguished career and considerable experience to share with our members. So what message would you give to the Ontario government?
Put up as many OASIS sites as you possibly partner with us, partner with my professor colleagues at Queen's who have done a huge amount of work through research grants to be able to expand the sites, but they can't be expanded permanently at this stage because there isn't permanent funding.
Right.
I would recommend, making sure those sites continue and expand them even further. I mean, we're working very clear. Our board is working very closely with Catherine and Vince around establishing a broader governance structure. We accept, I've been an Ontario public servant, I've been a municipal politician. I know there has to be accountability in terms of expenditure of public funds. It's very important. We're more than willing to look at what accountability mechanisms would apply. But I would suggest that OASIS is the first program to be looking at in a variety of NORC-like settings where people of modest income are continuing to live and can continue to live happily much longer, were they to get the kind of support they can get from OASIS. So I say to government, please partner with us. We would be more than happy to cooperate and get more of these sites going across the province.
Well, let's hope they do.
Yeah,
We have certainly given them a lot of suggestions on things they could be doing besides building more
yeah,
institutions.
yeah. And
Uh,
I know that, there are other models that are not dissimilar. But as I say, this one I think is the sort of ground one level of just social determination and connection, recognizing social determinants of health. And then if people need more support after that, we can look at other, more complex programs. But this is the basic, and it really works, and it's very cheap, or I should say inexpensive, I guess.
Inexpensive. Exactly. There will be quite a few SSAO members watching this video, I suspect. Do you have anything you'd like to say to them?
Yeah, well, I'll say what I said at the beginning. I think it's essential for everybody to watch the Dr. Robert Waldinger TED Talks. They're very Waldinger, current director of the Harvard study. I think lays out very clearly what's most important for all of us as we age. And I also I can tell people our collaborative website with the Queen's researchers is OASIS, OASIS Aging in Place. If they look up that, they can learn a lot more about the site. I can repeat again, some people will say, well, what's the difference between what you're doing and just a social committee in an apartment building? Well, the big difference is the program coordinator. And that costs money. That's a person, so under the surface of OASIS, it's a little bit complicated in that we, as a group of volunteers, don't hire. That's too complicated for us. So we have partnered with an organization in Kingston, Providence Care, which is a rehabilitation hospital, a regional hospital, who's totally supportive of what we're doing. And they manage our money for us, and they're our program coordinators, employee of that organization. It's working collaboratively. It's working beautifully. We obviously have complete cooperation of the landlord, who for a variety of reasons really likes having the program in the building. And then, as I said, we have the program coordinator who performs a variety of functions, helping members to find the kind of programming and activities they want and can afford. It's also helping people when they need advice on navigating healthcare social systems. The program coordinator is also a support to family members of people who live in the building, especially family members who don't live in Kingston. It's an extra layer of assurance for them that their older relative has somebody who's got keeping an eye on them and watching out for them. And also the program coordinator is important in making sure that new people coming into the building are made to feel welcome and are encouraged to participate in programming. So it doesn't become cliquey, right?
Yeah.
Which can often be the case when
And
people know each other well or have lived in the same building for a long time. So I don't think I can say any more than that. But as you can see, I'm an enthusiast for the program. I think it's very effective, and I hope we can spread it far and wide.
Thank you so much, Helen, for taking the time to do this. You're a wonderful ambassador for OASIS
Okay.
and a wonderful member of SSAO. So thank you so
Well, yeah,
much for doing
I
it.
certainly enjoy SSAO offering, and I encourage SSAO in its work. It's very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.